أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين علي ولي الله وأولاده المعصومين حجاج الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين علي حجة الله وأولاده المعصومين حجاج الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماؤه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالصخور ميادان أرضه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين فقد قال سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your du'as, your hajat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our amal and give us tawfiq to continue in observing our wajibat. In continuation of our weekly sermon, the topic being the prayer of the Prophet, Namaz-e-Payghambar, the way of the Prophet's praying, the methodology of the Prophet's praying. And we said that for years there has been ikhtilaf, there has been dispute among Sunni and Shia in regards to the way of the prayer of the Prophet. Did the Prophet pray with his hands up? Did the Prophet pray with his hands down? Did the Prophet do takbiratul ihram? Did the Prophet finish his prayer with the loud takbir, or did he finish it with doing salam towards the right and then the left? And so we looked at some of the ahadith that exists within the books of the Sihah Sitta, for example, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih al-Muslim, Sunan Abi Dawood, and Sunan Ibn Majah, which are amongst the most authentic of the books of the Ahlul Sunnah. Today we move forward to another topic, which has been a topic where mostly the Shia, which is us of course, will join the prayers. So Zohr and Asr as in Zohrain, and Maghrib and Isha as in Maghribain or Isha'ain. Is this something that the Prophet did in terms of praying the Zohr and Asr together, or did he pray the Zohr and the Asr separately? And what do the books of our Sunni brothers say in regards to the Jam' Bain as-Salatain, the joining of the prayers, Zohr wal Asr, Maghrib wal Isha? Durud padhiye Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. There's a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari from Abdullah ibn Abbas, who's a ravi of the hadith, who says that صليت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله ثمانية جميعا وسبعا جميعا. He says, I prayed with the Messenger of Allah 8 units of prayer together. And then I prayed with him 7 units of prayer together. 8 being 4 of Zohr and 4 of Asr, and 7 being 3 of Maghrib and 4 of Isha. And so he says this was Zohr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha. And so through this hadith, the Sharih Allama Wahidur Zaman Khan Hyderabadi, who was a very famous Sunni scholar of Hyderabad, Dr. Sahab, आपके शहर से उनका ताल्लुक था, लेकिन बहरहाल अहले सुन्नत थे, और of Sahih al-Bukhari he has done a tashri and commentary on it. He says, based on this hadith, there is no problem in joining Zohr and Asr together and Maghrib and Isha together. Durud padhiye Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then some people said, well, maybe the Prophet did this because he was in Safar, he was traveling, because he was in a rush, he was traveling, so that's why he did that. And so then the hadith says, again from An Ibn Abbas, Anna Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa ali bil Madinah. The Prophet was in Medina. Medina means no Safar. There's no traveling, because Medina is his city, is his hometown after Hijrah. And despite that, he prayed Sab'an wa Thamaniya. He prayed 7 and 8. Asr, Zohr, 4, 4, 8. Maghrib, Isha, 4, 3, 7. So he's prayed Sab and Thamani. He prayed 8 and he prayed 7. Now, someone says that maybe it was because it was the night of, because it rained. The Rawi says that maybe the Prophet did that because it rained. But then the Allama Wahidur Zaman says, look, but this is just the speculation of the Rawi. This is not what the hadith says. He says maybe because it rained. But he says this maybe is not, does not guarantee anything. It's just ihtimal, it's a possibility. So what is the hukm of a jam'u bayna salatayn? Can we join Zuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha together? Abdullah ibn Abbas was asked, why did the Prophet join? He says he joined so that there is no hardship on the ummah, for the ease of the ummah. And then he says, and this is from Sahih Muslim, Imam Muslim in Sahih al-Muslim, from again an Ibn Abbas, qala, Ibn Abbas says, Jama'a Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi bayna al-dhuhri wal-asr wal-maghribi wal-isha bil-Madinah. In Sahih Muslim, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says the Prophet joined in Medina. So it was not traveling. It was not raining. Zuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha fi ghayri khawfin wala matar. There was no khawf. It was not that it was war, and because it's war you have to pray quick. Or it's raining, you have to pray quick and get inside. It says, fi ghayri khawfin wala matarin. There was no khawf, there was no fear. This was in Medina, and there was no rain. The Prophet did not need a reason to join Zuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha. He did not need a reason. In other words, it can be done without reason, like we do. Salawat padhi Muhammad wa ala Muhammad par. तो ना खौफ था, ना बारिश थी, ना जंग. तो पूछा ऐसा क्यों किया अपने अब्बास? तो फरमाया ताकि उम्मत को तकलीफ ना हो. For the ease of ummah. That's one. The other is azan. If we have 5 prayers, we have 5 azans. But Shias have 3. 3 azaneं देते हैं ना अक्सर. So what is the ruling of azan? Does one must give azan before every salah? Or, is azan even wajib? इसी में बहस हल हो गई. अजान वाजिब है, मुस्तहब है. तो बहस इसी में हल हो गई. Number 1, azan itself is not amongst the wajibat of salah. If somebody gives azan or he does not give the azan or the aqama, it does not affect the sihhatus salah, the validity of salah. Salah is still fine. Sometimes someone is giving azan, you come in late. You come in running. नमाज में आपने शिरकत कर ली, तो क्या नमाज बातिल है? नहीं. Azan itself is a amal mustahab. Aqamat itself is a amal mustahab. आप दें या अपना अच्छी बात है, दें, मुस्तहब है. Number 1. Number 2, it's not that we only give 3 azans. We only announce 3 azans from the minarets. अब ज़रूरी नहीं है कि एक अजान से मजमा जमा हो गया. असर पढ़ दिया आपने. Now you want to do ज़ोहर. अब ये नहीं कि ज़ोहर से पहले आप फिर किसी को मीनार पे भेजेंगे कि तुम बुलाओ. And anyway, most centers around Imam Bargas and mosques around the world, not just like around the world, the first azan is given loud on the speaker. The second azan, aqamat, is given quietly. Not that it's not given. And even if it's not given, again, it falls in the category of mustahab, so it doesn't impact the prayer anyhow. Durood padhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the first azan is the azan that should be given loudly to gather the people. Next is the salat of the Prophet in regards to his sajda. Tawajjuh farma rahe hain sab hazrat? Sajda. This is very important. Sajda is amongst the pillars of salah. Amongst the rukn of salah is the sajdatain, rukn salah. When the Prophet did sajda or sujood, what did the Prophet make sajda on? Did he make it on the on the fabric, on the carpet? Did he make it on the sand? Did he make it on leaves? Did he make it on a piece of wood? What do the books of our Sunni brothers say about this? The hadith is from Ummul Mu'mineen Hazrat Maymuna radiyallahu anha, one of the wives of the Prophet. And this is in Bukhari, volume number 1, page 118. She says, whenever the Prophet, Ummul Mu'mineen, she says, whenever the Prophet would come and he would pray, whenever he would do sajda, he would go into sujood. قالت وكان يصلي على الخمر. She says that he would bow his head on, like, khamra ka lafz istemal hua कि जिसे हम उर्दू में कहते हैं सजदेगाह. He would bow on this piece, on a piece of, yes, so it's like, in the olden days, it could be made of different things. Sometimes it's made out of chatai, जिसे हम कहते हैं उर्दू में, जो लकड़ी की बनती है, या date tree leaves put together and made into like a sajdegah, made into like a small piece. उसे कहते हैं khamra. Ummul Mu'mineen Hazrat Maymuna, she says that the Prophet, whenever he would put his head down, he would put it down on this piece made out of the leaves of date trees, palm trees. And this is where he would make his sajdegah, जिसे हम सादा अल्फाज में कहते हैं सजदेगा. This is in Bukhari. Now, Alama Wahidul Zaman Khan, who has done the commentary on Bukhari, again he says, all of the Sunni fuqaha, he says they have ittifaq that you can do sajda on such a leaf of palm trees. And the Ibn Abi Shayba, again is a Sunni author, he says that the best sajda is done on sand, turba, mitti, khak par, and any other sajda apart from that is makruh, discouraged. Makruh is discouraged. Obviously for them it's not haram, but for them to say it's makruh, it still speaks tons. Durood padhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What's interesting is that Imam Bukhari in Sahihul Bukhari and Imam Abu Dawood in his Sunan Abi Dawood, both of them have got 2 chapters in their books. 2 बाब बांधे हैं इन्होंने अपनी किताबों में, कि जिसका उन्वान है as-salat al-khamra. 2 chapters, bab in Bukhari and bab in Sunan Abi Dawood from Imam Abu Dawood and Imam Bukhari. They've got 2 complete chapters which speak about the same topic, to do sajda on leaves or like this mold that is made from palm tree leaves or wood. And so they say that because of this, it is known and it is accepted in the kutub of hadith, in the books of tradition and hadith, by our scholars of hadith, that the Prophet would always make sajda on this thing that he had molded. And so this same thing is Bukhari, this is in Muslim, this is in Sunan Abi Dawood, this is in Tirmizi. Imam Malik from Medina, of course, and you know Imam Malik and the Maliki Sunnis, they pray with their hands, down, open hands. They say the same thing. To make sajda on anything else other than this khamra, this mold, is considered makruh, discouraged. And this has been translated in other languages as well. Now the question is, Allama Wahidul Zaman, he was asked this question, well, what is this khamra? What is this? What is this piece? What is this mold? And because he has written books on, this scholar is someone who's written a lot of books on the translation of hadith, lughat hadith. He says, look, this is a mold made out of leaves, made out of wood. It's a piece you can carry around. You can do sajda on it. And then he says, interestingly enough, he says that this is the same hadith. He says what the hadith speaks about back then. He says this is the same sajdega or the same mohor or turba that in our day and age the Shias use. Isn't that interesting? He says what the hadith speaks about back then is the same thing that in our day and age we know the Shias to be using. So what we are doing goes hand in hand with Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmizi and Sunan Abi Dawood. Dood padi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. And then Marhum Allama Wahidul Zaman, he says that even though in our mazhab, in our school of thought, it is jaiz to do sajda on a piece of cloth, fabric. However, he says it is still better to do it on sand, mitti par, khak par behtar hai. And finally, and then what's interesting is that in his book, he speaks about his personal experience. He says, because it is the sunnah of the Prophet to make sajda on this turba, on this mohar, on this mitti, on this khak, on this sand, on earth. Marhum Allama Wahidul Zaman Khan, he says that because it is sunnah, sometimes I do sajda on the sajdegah. And because of that, he says, people have called me Rafidhi. People have called me an innovator. But he says that the ta'an and the la'an of the juhala doesn't matter to me. Because what matters to me is the sunnah of the Prophet. Ahle sunnat alim hai, Shia nahi hai. He says, उनकी वजह से मुझ पे तान की गई, मुझ पे लान की गई, मुझ पे जो है झूठ बांधा गया कि ये राफिजी है, ये है. तो कहा मुझे उससे कोई गर्ज नहीं, मुझे तो बस सुन्नत रसूल ही से गर्ज है. कोई राफिजी कहे या कोई खारिजी कहे. और मैं इसी पे तमाम करूं. कम से कम एक बात तो तय हो गई कि सजदेगाह पर ना सिर्फ ये कि सजदा जायज़ है, सजदेगाह पर सजदा सुन्नत रसूल है. और अल्लामा वहीद कहते हैं कि जिस मस्जिद में कभी जाता था वहाँ कपड़ा होता था, मैं वहाँ अपनी चटाई बचा के नमाज पढ़ता था. तो मुझे कहते थे कि ये राफिजी हो गया है. बहरहाल दुआ है परवरदिगार आलम से, परवरदिगारा उम्मत इस्लाम को सुन्नत हकीकी मोहम्मद मुस्तफ़ा पर अमल करने की तौफीक इनायत फरमा. वास्ता मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद का परवरदिगारा हम सबको उसी तरह उसी तरीक़े से नमाज़ पढ़ने की तौफीक इनायत फरमा जो रसूल खुदा सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का तरीक़ा और उनकी सुन्नत थी. वास्ता मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद का परवरदिगारा तमाम तर मोमिनीन मोमिनात आशिकाने हैदर कर्रार मवालियान अमीरुल मोमिनीन की हिफाजत फरमा. परवरदिगारा दुश्मनान अहले बैत को गारत फरमा. वास्ता मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद का परवरदिगारा दुनिया में ज़ियारत मौला हुसैन, आखरत में शफ़ाअत इमाम हुसैन नसीब फरमा. परवरदिगारा हज़रत हुज्जत इमाम ज़माना के ज़ुहूर में ताजील फरमा. वास्ता मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद का हमें मौला के अंसार व आवान में शुमार फरमा. बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम वल अस्र इन्नल इंसाना लफ़ी खुस्र इल्लल्लज़ीना आमनू व अमिलुस्सालिहात व तवासौ बिल हक़्क़ि व तवासौ बिस सब्र. وعجل. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على سيد الأوصياء أمير المؤمنين ويعصوب الدين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه. اللهم صل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء صلوات الله عليها. اللهم صل على إمامنا الحسن المجتبى المقتول بسم الجفا. اللهم صل على وعلى أبي عبد الله الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين العلي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الهادي والحسن بن علي العسكري والحجة بن الحسن المهدي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها الطويل برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We begin with yet another companion of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, a companion who is a Kufi companion from Kufa, someone like we discussed, Hudhaifa was Sahibu Sirr al-Nabi. He was the one who was the Razdar Payghambar. This is Razdar Ali, this companion. This is someone who was known to be a date seller. He used to sell dates. Maytham al-Tammar Asadi al-Kufi. Rahmatullahi alayhi, Radwanullahi alayhi. Maytham al-Tammar is amongst the first degree of companions of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. What do I mean? Someone who shared the secrets of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We all know Maytham. Many of you, when you go to Kufa, when you visit the house of Imam, Bayt Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, you visit Masjid Kufa, you visit Maytham al-Tammar. This is someone who accompanied 3 Imams. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. And he is killed 1 year before Karbala. In 60 AH after Hijrah. And Karbala is in 61. So though it's a year, but it's not a complete year because Karbala is in the beginning of the year. Anyhow, Maytham al-Tammar, though he lived in Kufa, he was someone who was sakin in Kufa. But there's, the ulama said, the muarrakhin said that Maytham al-Tammar was Ajami. In other words, he was not Arabi, he was Ajam. Differences of opinions exist. Some have said he was from Iran. But a lot of the ulama, they say he was from Azerbaijan. Originally, his father's name was Yahya. Maytham ibn Yahya. And some had said he was from Nahrawan, near Baghdad. So either he was from Nahrawan, or he was from Faris, Iran, or he was from Azerbaijan. But what's clear is that he was amongst the Mawaliyan, so he was amongst the non-Arab Shias who were living in Kufa. The first time Maytham al-Tammar met Ali ibn Abi Talib was in Kufa during the Khilafah of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. That's the first time he met Imam Amirul Mu'mineen. He's known as Asadi al-Kufi because Maytham al-Tammar was not Asadi. Maytham al-Tammar, he was a ghulam, he was a servant of one of the Asadi, one of the women of the Bani Asad tribe. And because he was a servant of the tribe of Bani Asad, they called him Asadi. The story is that Imam Amirul Mu'mineen bought him and then freed him. Ali ibn Talib bought him and then freed him. And then the hadith says one day Imam Ali asks to him, what is your name? And he gives his old name. He says, my name is Salim. My father, this was his name in Kufa. He says, my name is Salim. The people call me Salim. And Imam Ali alayhi salam says to him, but my Habibi Rasulullah told me that your father named you Maytham. He was shocked. He was surprised. He says, no one in Kufa knows me as Maytham. Only my father knows this name. And so, Maytham at-Tam, and so Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen says, bring your name back to Maytham. And so from then on, he became to be known as Maytham in Kufa, in Iraq. So the Iraqis, they started from then to call him Maytham. At-Tammar, because he was known to be a date seller. And remember, Maytham has a rank. Maqam of Maytham is such that Maytham had a small place where he would sell his dates. Yet Imam Ali would go and meet him and sit with him there. So much so that one day Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib sent Maytham to go and do something for him, and he stood back, sat there for a few hours selling dates. And so history has it that a munafiq came and he says, Ya Ali, I want to buy some dates. So Amir Mu'mineen says, put the money here and take your dates. So Imam Ali didn't serve him directly. He says, put the money down here and take your dates and go. Of course, Imam Ali knew he was a munafiq. But he didn't say anything to him. He said, okay. He takes out some coins and he puts them, and he takes some dates and he goes. When Maytham at-Tammar returns, Imam Ali says, there's someone, you had a customer, someone bought and he left. So he picked up these coins. He says, but Ya Ali, these coins are fake. These coins are not real. Imam Ali alayhi salam smiles at him. He says, don't worry, he'll come back soon. And as they were talking, this man comes back. And he says, oh Ali, these dates are off. Imam Ali says, so is your money, take it and go. Durud padhiye Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so this is Maytham. It is said that he was someone who was told secrets by Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he made some predictions, some very important predictions. He predicted the death of Muawiyah. How? It is said that Maytham one day was by the Furat in Kufa. He was in a ship and there was a storm. And so him with his sailors, they eventually got to the side of the river and they came out. And Maytham said to his companions, this storm brings the news of the death of Muawiyah. He says, how do you know? What do you mean? He says, mark the date and the time. A week later, a messenger comes from Syria saying Muawiyah has died. They said, what was the date and time of his death? They said, this is the date and time. And they say it matched exactly what Maytham said. He was someone who was known for his knowledge. Maytham told Mukhtar, when Maytham was put in prison, Hazrat Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, he said to Mukhtar, O Mukhtar, very soon you shall be freed from the prisons of Ibn Ziyad and you will trample on the face of Ibn Ziyad. And this is what happened. So much so that one day when Maytham went to Medina, and he met the wife of the Prophet, Al-Mu'mineen, Salma. She says to him, "Oh, are you Maysam?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Our Mawla Imam Hussein remembers you with good words." And you are someone who is remembered by Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Before I end, and inshallah we'll leave his, of course, there's a big part of the life of Maysam which is to do with his martyrdom and how he was killed. But we'll leave that for the coming week. Of course, we know Maysam was not in Karbala. It is said that he was put in prison, he was arrested by Ibn Ziyad, and eventually was killed, and inshallah we'll speak about that. But just before Imam Hussein entered Iraq, few days before Imam Hussein entered Iraq, not Karbala, Iraq, before he entered the borders of Iraq, Maysam was already killed. He was put to death. But he left behind children, amongst them 4 sons. And he made them the wasiyah. Look, there is no greater treasure than the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is the wasiyah he made his sons. Just like the wasiyah, if you remember last week, Huzaifa ibn al-Yaman to his sons. Fight with Ali in Siffin, and they died with Ali, fighting alongside Amir al-Mu'mineen in Siffin. His children were raised with Ahlul Bayt. 3 Imams. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. And remember when Imam Ali moved to Kufa, he moved to Kufa with his family. And Maysam al-Tammar was there. Imam Ali was there, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Bibi Zainab, Bibi Umm Kulsum, Hazrat Abbas, they were all there. Bibi Umm al-Banin and her sons. Maysam al-Tammar became so close to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen would do khalwat with him. You know what khalwat is? यानी अली इब्न अबी तालिब मैसम तम्मार के साथ खलवत किया करते थे, बिल्कुल वैसे जैसे रसूल अली के साथ खलवत किया करते थे. खल यानी alone, when no one is allowed to be there. Rasulullah at times, and some of the companions complained, Ya Rasulullah, why do you always take Ali ibn Abi Talib and you're alone with him, and you speak with him, and you share secrets with him, and you teach him, and you tell him things that you don't tell us? In the same way, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib would take Maysam al-Tammar and Kumayl ibn Ziyad, and he would go and he would sit with him in privately, and he would teach them things that no one else would know. And hence, because of this, he became to be known as a mufassir of Quran. He became to be known as a ravi of a hadith. And he became to be known as someone who knows the ilmul manaya wal balaya. He was given that ilm, and because of that, he was able to make these predictions. The prediction of the killing of Imam Hussein, the prediction of Hazrat Mukhtar, the prediction of his own martyrdom, which was given to him by Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. We'll go through that inshallah. This is the bulk of his life, which is his death, and some of the mu'jizat and the karamat which are related to that, and his burial place today, which is in Kufa in Iraq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq of the ziyarat of Maysam al-Tammar. And when you go for ziyarah of Hazrat Maysam, really don't rush it, because sometimes we rush it and we go straight to Masjid al-Kufa. Really take your time when you're in that place and try to digest who this personality is, how he was killed, for what he was killed, what his life was all about. Inshallah, and I'll mention that in the next khutbah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our ibadat, give us tawfiq, accept and increase in the rizq of halal. Anyone who is unwell, Allah give him shifa ajila wa kamila. Anyone who's left this dunya from amongst the mu'mineen and mu'minat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise them ma'a ahlil bayt fil jannah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad.